Tyson Fury defeated Wladimir Klitschko in November 2015. He subsequently hit the wall and unraveled until he relinquished his belts a year later. From there, his downward spiral and weight gain continued to grab headlines. The story of the Gypsy King was becoming increasingly regrettable. The next year was a clusterfuck of mixed messages. 1 month he had turned a corner and was rededicated to the sport of boxing.
During a nice little run, you feel tired when you don't have carbs, but you did it to yourself, so there's no pity for an idiot.
The next he was washing his hands of the sweet science and announcing his retirement. The various clips that emerged in that period did little to inspire confidence. If this was a fight of his life, it was a fight he was losing in spectacular fashion. Embarrassing stories and photos circulated social media. The man had become a living portrait of reckless instability. He continued to keep himself in the headlines, talking shit about Joshua and hyping a potential fight with Wilder.
I see AJ's talking a bit of smack again, saying my fight was boring with Vladimir. Better to win and be boring than getting dropped all over the floor and scraping a win. I never got punched, you got carried off the canvas nearly. So many bums out there that need cleaning up and wiping out. And I wipe all them bums. Boom.
But as his public image deteriorated, these call-outs became increasingly ridiculous, or at least feeble. Fury seemed a million miles away from competing with those guys, and frankly, deluded about his place in the heavyweight division. It wasn't until late 2017 that the clouds finally began to part for Fury. A terribly mishandled dispute with UK anti-doping with regards to a failed test for nandrolone in early 2015 was finally resolved. Fury accepted a 2-year backdated suspension, which cleared the way for him to reapply for his boxing license. In January 2018, he appointed a new coach, which at least seemed like a commitment. But that coach was basically a child in the boxing world, and it looked like another inadvisable impulse decision from a man who would spend several years living a life of inadvisable impulse decisions. He commented on parting ways with his uncle and longtime coach Peter Fury, stating that their relationship was still amicable, but their dynamic had become stale. The camps were a little too serious.
Changed trainer because me and Peter have gone stale. We've worked together for so many years, and it's just one of the things. Sometimes you need to change. We haven't fallen out, no bad words, nothing. Peter done excellent work for me and I was happy. Yeah. And I done the best I could for him and he was happy with what I done. But it was deadly, everything was dead serious back then, and now it's not for me.
His relationship with his new coach, 25-year-old Ben Davison, was more fun and lighthearted.
I'm enjoying me training, sparring, running, jogging, being with Ben. Ben's a young trainer, he motivates me. We're laughing and joking all the time.
But considering that a description of more fun and less focus could be used to describe the last 2 years of Fury's life, this decision looked like a further symptom of instability, a sign that maybe his head wasn't in the right place, and another possible misstep. He also reflected on the hell he had been through, and had a somewhat philosophical take on the whole thing.
Tell me, how dark did it get?
It got as dark as you can ever can imagine. Hell, I'm back 100 times. So I wouldn't say, oh, I'd go back and change it, because that's the life I chose. Yeah. And you can't know good times from bad times if everything's good all the time. Yeah. The Lord tested me, and what don't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah. And I'm a better man for him out the other side, nothing cushy. Yeah.
For a couple years, Tyson had been all talk. He had been back and forth like a yo-yo, and so there was little reason to take his return seriously. But over the next couple months, the headlines went from kebab shop binge to incredible weight loss. The clips went from drunk and rowdy to focus and discipline. Fury seemed to have actually turned a corner. The question of why or how this time was different would eventually be answered.
Quick update, guys. Training's going very well. Training, sparring, everything is going way ahead of plan. Really looking forward to June the 9th. Put on a showcase. The day the Mac is back.
After 2.5 years out of the ring, Tyson's first order of business was to simply lose a weight, get in shape, and get some rounds under his belt, which he did in an uncompetitive fight against Sefer Seferi. a fight he didn't appear to take seriously, showboating and clowning around before turning up the heat and causing his opponent's corner to wave the fight off after 4. One website called it a shambolic mismatch. Now, I gotta admit, I like that combination of words, shambolic mismatch. But to be fair, if anyone needed a tune-up fight, it was Fury. And he followed it up in August with a more impressive victory, dominating Francesco Pianetta in Belfast. Meanwhile, as Deontay Wilder was becoming increasingly frustrated by his inability to secure the Anthony Joshua fight, his attention had turned to Tyson. The hype for Fury-Wilder was well underway even before the Pianetta fight, with both men trading shots and publicly agreeing to the bout.
This is a message to Deontay Wilder. I've just seen another ridiculous statement from you, Wilder, that you've got more fear factor than Mike Tyson had. You're a dreamer, you are, honestly. I've never seen a man dream so much in my life. I don't know why you're taking the great Mike Tyson's name in vain, really, and keep mentioning him when he's not even in your era. But however, there is a Tyson in your era, and I'll stop you inside 5 rounds, you bum.
But one thing I promise when I go to Las Vegas is I'm knocking you the fuck out, bum.
A month later, the big showdown was officially announced for December 1st in LA, following a 3-city promotional tour to hype the fight. I'm not going to focus on the mind games or build-up, because despite Fury's ability to frustrate opponents, the supreme confidence of both guys was apparent in virtually every exchange. 2 big, undefeated heavyweights, Wilder knocking everyone's ass out, Fury outboxing all, including the greatest heavyweight of the last 15 years. The ease with which the fight had come together was pretty much a perfect statement of how confident the 2 competitors were, and it was largely the case for the press conferences, both clearly ready to go. I think some people felt Wilder was gotten to by the end of it, and I do think he became a little tired of being overshadowed by Fury, and his comeback story, his flip out at Raheem, was especially strange.
You know what I'm talking about. Y'all all know what I'm talking about, man. Don't sit up here and try to bait and not know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what the fuck I talk about when I say these things. Your people too. You know we've been fighting 400 and still fighting to this day. To this day. To this day.
But I was never expecting either guy to buckle. Their confidence was just too blatantly obvious, and so the mental warfare never really interests me. For the most part, the build-up was respectful and lighthearted, but as enjoyable as it was, the banter wasn't the reason I was invested in a matchup. I was invested because of Fury, and what his journey had come to represent in the minds of me and millions of viewers around the world. By this stage, it was clear Fury's comeback was very real. This time had been different from his prior attempts to get his life back on track. On the Joe Rogan Experience, Tyson explained why. In October 2017, Fury was a fat, out-of-shape mess, having spent 2 years destroying his body and going to war with his mind. He went to a Halloween party dressed as a skeleton. A big, fat, out-of-shape, 6'9" 400-pound skeleton. Which is just a hilarious fucking image.
I was a 400 pounds dressed up as a skeleton.
And right there in a nightclub, he hit some kind of rock bottom. He had a clear revelation. He looks at himself, partying with people 10 years younger, out of shape, a wreck, and he finally thinks, what the fuck am I doing here?
And I go to this fancy dress party and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, these are all young kids compared to me. I'm 30 and I feel like I was the oldest guy in there, like 29. I was like, what am I doing here? Is this what you want for your life? And I thought to myself, this is not me.
Now, I've never had a point as low as Tyson Fury, thankfully. But I have had these types of moments. I know exactly what he's talking about here. A moment where you've been rolling downhill and you finally think, hey, how the fuck did I get here? These moments can be powerful. In the Robert Whittaker video, I mentioned that in life, I think if you just admit you're a man in desperate need of a revelation, they do tend to come. And this is exactly what I was talking about.
And no matter how many people told me before this, you can only change your life if you want to change it. And I left and everyone said, are you going home early? I said, yeah. I left at 9 o'clock, I went home. And I got back home, I didn't say anything to the wife, I went straight upstairs into a dark room. And I took
took the stupid skeleton suit off, and I was sat there, and I got on my knees and I was praying and begging God to help me. And at this point, I'd never begged or cried to God to help me before. I'd prayed a lot, but I'd never been in this physical state before. I could feel tears running down my face. My chest was wet with tears, because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. It wasn't possible for me, because I'd tried and tried and tried, and ended up back in the pub, back drinking. So I was on my knees in this bedroom. After praying for about 10 minutes, I got up, and I felt the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. And for the first time in years, I knew I was going to make a comeback.
You know, some people seem to roll through life on an even keel. They make it look easy. For others, life is much more ups and downs. There's a lot more turbulence involved. And sometimes, if you're on the way down, you can have these moments of clarity where you finally see just how bad you let things get. And you think, hey, enough. Jesus Christ, enough. And from there, the impetus rises to embrace the challenges of your life. And you can do things you wouldn't have thought you were even capable of attempting. I've had moments in my life like this that honestly defined the years that followed. Dark moments, but they have preceded all of the brighter periods of my life. And they are exactly what Fury is describing here.
And I called my wife. I said, Paris. She said, what? She thought I was drunk coming home from the pub. I said, Monday morning, I start to regain mission to try and get the heavyweight championship of the world back. She said, yeah. Because before this, every time I'd have a beer, I'd come back and I'm going to be the heavyweight champion of the world again, because it was the alcohol talking. So I was like the man who called wolf 1,000 times. And after this prayer, I got up, I said, right, this is going to be it. She didn't believe me 1 second. But even when I speak to her now, she says, that night you told me that, she said, I hear a difference in your voice. Something happened. Next day I phoned up Ben Davison and I said, I don't want to go back down the old route with the same trainer, same promoter, same anything. I said, everything's got to change. I said, it's going to be a new Tyson Fury.
And so a lot of people, including myself, saw their own struggles, their own shortcomings, and some of the more difficult parts of their own lives represented by this big 6'9" gypsy on a comeback. Fury's return became a perfect metaphor for anyone who's fucked things up, become their own worst nightmare, and had to drag their raggedy ass off the fucking floor. Fury left the sport of boxing as a pariah, but if you take a guy as open and honest as Tyson and is capable of articulating himself, and you give him a story as universally resonant as the one he now has, then it's really no surprise he's returned as a true people's champ. Tyson Fury is now a media darling, and it's amazing to see the guy getting a positive embrace from the public. For people who can relate to Fury, the whole thing went way beyond belts or money. It was about solidarity and a human spirit. I've never felt more invested or represented by an athlete than I did by Fury here. It felt like the fight of Tyson's life had transcended the sport of boxing, and it was now a fight the man was winning. But it wasn't over. Obviously, the last step in a true triumphant return was the bout itself. Deontay Wilder, the most devastating puncher alive today, a killer in the ring, who had devastating knockout victories in 39 of 40 fights. This was Fury's true comeback, and the thing was a fucking roller coaster. My major hope for the fight was that the journey wouldn't end in an embarrassing whimper. Fury out in the first couple minutes. But it wasn't Fury who got embarrassed. Well, embarrassed may be a bit harsh, but after a couple close rounds, there was long periods of this fight where Deontay's style was completely neutralized. His massive wide haymakers missing by significant margins. Fury's slick head movement was giving him fits. It was billed as boxer versus puncher, and it played out exactly as such. Any concerns about Fury's time away from the highest level were quickly forgotten. He was outclassing Wilder. Floyd Mayweather gave Tyson the first 5 rounds. It seemed like Fury's fight to lose and Wilder's fight to steal with one big punch. After 8 rounds, both the British and American unofficial scorecards had Fury ahead 7-1. He was playing his part as a boxer to perfection. But now, it was Deontay's turn to step in as a big puncher. In round 9, Fury got caught in a corner. Wilder unloaded, a big right hand lands, and down goes Fury. All of a sudden, the fight was in the air and up for grabs. But Fury survived the subsequent onslaught and quickly resumed outboxing Wilder, winning the next 2 rounds. Fury had taken one of Wilder's big shots and survived, kept moving, kept scoring. But he wasn't out of the woods yet. Wilder wasn't going down easy. In round 12, he dug deep and caught Fury with a devastating combination. A wicked right hand followed by a vicious left hook seemed to knock Fury dead. I mean, if the ref had stepped in here, would anyone have complained? I thought the guy was done. Good effort, but just wasn't a be. 2 years ago, I mentioned that of all the fighters I've ever seen fall from grace, Tyson is the one I wanted to see bounce back the most. And now with him in the midst of doing so, lying seemingly out cold on a canvas, of all the fighters I've ever seen go down, Fury is the one I wanted to see get back up the most. And just as he bounced back from hell, he somehow dragged that big gypsy ass off the fucking mat. The resurrection was nothing short of shocking. Even more incredible, he resumed tuning Wilder up. It was the most spectacular back from the grave, rise from the ashes sporting moment I've ever seen. And even though the judges saw fit to steal some of his shine, when the final bell rang, we were momentarily living in Fury's world. While Tyson jumped the ropes, Wilder looked utterly defeated, and the crowd erupted in support of the people's champ, the Gypsy King. Controversially, the fight was ruled a draw, but even so, there was no lingering animosity or sour grapes about the decision. It had always been a positive, competitive rivalry between two supremely confident and secure guys. They embraced and were mostly complimentary.
And we're the best in the world. He just kept saying thank you for the opportunity. We love, I love you. I love you. You know, what a great fight. And the respect was mutual.
Bless Deontay Wilder in the mighty name of Jesus. He's a top fighting man. Thank you for the opportunity, D. Bless you and your family. God bless you.
With that performance, Fury's comeback to boxing's elite was complete, and Tyson was acutely aware of exactly what it represented and to who.
I just showed the world tonight, everyone suffering with mental health, that you can come back and it can be done. Everybody out there who has the same problems that I've been suffering with, I did that for you guys. You know the truth. Everybody knows I won that fight. And if I can come back from where I come from, then you can do it too. So get up, get over it, and let's do it. Seek help and let's do it together as a team. I did it for you guys.
The last couple of years of Tyson Fury's life is an extreme example of an arc I think most people can relate to. The highs may have been higher, and the low was especially grim. But for most people, life is just a series of ups and downs. It can whoop your ass all over the fucking place. You can go from failure to fuck up, and like Fury, in a very short period of time, lose or destroy shit that took years to build. Tyson dealt with relinquishing his belts, getting kicked around like a dog, banned from the sport. His body hit the wall, his own mind turned on him. He was failing on every fucking level. And I'll tell you, the longer you go in life without a solid win, the more difficult it becomes to dust yourself off and get back on a horse, because you carry the cumulative weight of all those failures. Life can crush your fucking spirit to the point where you're asking the question, can I fix this? Can I even turn this around? And so Fury's comeback was inspirational. It was one of those legendary fights that took on a significance far beyond the sport. Woven into the whole saga, was a message of hope and resilience, but above all, solidarity. The idea that life is tough, but you're not alone in that. These ups and downs, they're universal. So for those who might find themselves depressed or miserable, asking that question, can I turn my life around? Well, consider Fury and put your faith in the idea that the answer is yes.
Life continues. It is what it is. Oh yeah, life goes on. Even after the draw is done. Where's Tim? Where's Tim? A long, long time ago,
I can still remember
how that music used to make me smile. What
if I had my chance.
I could make those people dance. Sing along if you know the words. For a while. Come on. February made me shiver with every paper I deliver. Bad news on the doorstep.
I could take one more
Come on, Frank. Come on, guys, join in.
And I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widow bride. Something touched me deep inside the day the music died. So bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Drinking whiskey and wine.
This is not a good idea. We've got to go to Germany to try and outbox a super champion and try and win on the cards. Are you crazy? I said yes. I said, but if I wasn't crazy, I won't be great.
Did you write the book of love, and do you have faith in
And I went over there and outboxed him.
If the Bible tells you so. Now do you believe in rock and roll?
Is that unpredictability difficult to cope with from your perspective?
Can you teach me how to dance real slow?
It is.
Well, I know that
I'll be honest, it
you're
is.
in love with him, 'cause I saw you dancing in the gym. You both kicked off your shoes. Man, I dig those rhythm and blues. I was a lonely teenage funkin' buck with a pink carnation and a pickup truck, but I knew I was out of luck the day the music died.
Come on, guys, join in.
I started singing bye bye this American Pie.
Where was he 3 years ago? Nowhere to be seen. And look here.
Good old boys are drinking whiskey and ride, singing this will be the
Today,
day that I die.
be real, people. Change your life now.
Clearly not. You want to give a photo? No. Have a look.
Now for 10 years,
Nothing in you. Shame on you, man.
Spat on a Rolling Stone, but that's not how it used to be. When the jester sang for the king and queen in a coat borrowed from James Dean and a voice that came from you and me. Oh, and while the king was looking down, the jester stole his
horrible Coogan. I watched him go down and I thought he'd been down before, he'll get up. And then the clock was ticking and that 8 seconds went on to 5 minutes it felt.
This'll be the day that I die. They were singing bye bye this American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And good old boys drinking whiskey and wine. This'll be the day that I die.
We're done. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. I love you all.